Good evening, Facebook land. It's nice to see. I've got lots of people on, I can see. Funnily enough, on my phone, which is facing away from me, I get little pictures, and I can just make out a few people. I can see Phil Spratt's there, and I think Ed Ford's there. Hello, Ed. Oh, Derek's there. I can see Derek. But on the laptop, it just doesn't tell me at all. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. As always, I like to do my my check, my sound check. So somebody just tell me yes so they can hear me. That'd be great. Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks, Malcolm. There's always somebody that actually listens, which is great. Which is absolutely great. Give everybody a moment to get themselves logged on and for any connection issues. Tonight's going to be an interesting one. We've got lots of really cool things that we're going to look at, including this baby that's in front of us, which is a Matuka style zonker that I tied and has disappeared off to Patagonia and Iceland to hopefully catch. Well, I know it caught some fish out there, so you know it's definitely a pattern to have a go at, to challenge yourself, but at the same time, as always, it's all about techniques. So I'm going to be looking at techniques tonight and ensuring that that I talk you through them. Any questions, put them up in the chat, and at the end of every fly, I'll just have a quick scroll through, see if there's anything that I can respond to. But feel free, guys, because there's a lot of very experienced tyers in front of us here that are watching, which is a bit nerve-wracking, really. But feel free to answer things for me, guys, because you know it's always good to have everybody's representation. Now, this little particular baby as well. Kieran and I are disappearing off tomorrow for a little jolly. More on that after we've been. But this is one of the flies I'm going to give a bit of a swim and see if I can entice something big with tomorrow. So more on that. Watch this space. Okay. So let's just have a quick look. So definitely, Derek's here, Phil's here, as we said, Ed, Malcolm, Dylan. It's like a roll call, this, isn't it? Stevie, hi Stevie. Neil, Dan, good to hear from you, Dan. I have to catch up soon, as I said in my message, buddy. Pete, or Caroline, as I will continue to call him, and even when we finally meet Pete, I'm probably going to call you Caroline. And Paul Beckley, the crap pipe fisher, is in the house. Okay, we still love you, Paul. We still love you. We know that they're a challenge. Okay. So here we go. Tonight as well, I've sort of got some materials that I was given from a supplier, and I've decided that I don't need them, and I'm going to use them as sort of little mini competition prizes for anybody that's watching, or anybody that watches in the future up to a certain point. And basically anything from tonight that you see tied, if you fancy having a go at it or putting your own spin on it and posting a picture up in the group, and I'll put a tag that you can put on there as well. We'll choose one person a week, and I'll send them a little goodie bag of some thread and some other goodies that I've got. You know, it's about 10 quid's worth of stuff, but it's better than nothing. And frankly, the wife wants me to get rid of it at the house. So ultimately, lots of stuff going on tonight. I got a few messages from last week, and it was great to see and hear all the real positive comments that came back. But I also was very conscious, and somebody I can't remember who it was now, it's in my head somewhere, said, can we tie more flies for beginners? And I thought, well, actually that's a really good idea. Now, I have done a beginners session before, but we looked at vices and everything as well. So I'm going to try in most of my sessions put in a fly that is a good starting point for any beginner watching as well. But don't forget, it's all about technique. So technique trumps the pattern ultimately. So if you get the techniques down, you can apply it to whatever whatever you like. So after today, for instance, you'll have the technique, and you'll have the idea about how you could tie a Matuka style fly using a feather going across the top in the old traditional Matuka style. Based on that, Malcolm, don't put me under that pressure. Even the missus is watching. Hello. And yeah, so if you got any questions, you need anything as we go through, just chuck it up in the chat, and we'll go from there. So first fly for tonight is an absolute favourite of mine, and one that has caught lots and lots and lots of fish, and I know it has because A, I've caught them, and B, one of the competitions where it was used is the Wild Trout Trust 3 Fly Challenge, which is at Meon Springs, and it's hosted there, I think, June the 17th, I think, this year. This version I tied, when I tied the flies by hand for them one year, was one of the flies that they used. And it's a good job too, because actually the dry flies weren't playing, and the buzzer and the nymph were the order of the day. Got to get into this packet. I'm going to start off today with a Kamasan B170 medium trout traditional hook. This is a size 12. Why size 12? Literally, it's the first one I picked up out of the box. So I'm just going to put that there just for the moment so I don't lose it. And I'm opening up a new packet of brass beads. I'm going to put a brass bead on the front of this one. So it's going to be sort of a nugget version. Okay. And as always, packets are really hard to get into. Now this is a 3.2 mil. I've oversized because I want a bit of weight on it. I'm not going to put tungsten on it because I don't want it to drop as quickly as tungsten. Fits quite nicely. And then I'm going to place it in the vise. There we go. Just check that. There we go. And that's the start of it. And the thread I'm going to use for this fly is this rather beautiful looking copper coloured nano silk. So from Semperfly. And a lot of the materials and things I'm going to use, not all, are available on the website, or if I'm out of stock, I'll be getting more in fairly soon. But at the same time, anything else I use, I'll sort of direct you in where you might be able to pick up those ingredients for the fly. So I'm going to start and just put on a thread base, touching turns, using the tag end just to, as I push it forward, the tag end pushes it back and makes them into touching turns. Why is it important? It's keeping that level playing field. And I'm using nano silk for a lot of the flies tonight because I want to minimize bulk. Remember, nano silk, using a scalpel just to clip off there onto that. Now obviously it's a pheasant tail nymph, so pheasant tail's got to come into it. I've got loads of pheasant tails in different colours here, but I really like this picric sort of yellow colour. So I'm going to choose this one to use to work with tonight, just for something a little bit different. And I want quite a chunky tail on it. So I'm looking about 8 fibres. Don't worry if you go for 9. But just literally, I'm going to pull them off, and the tips will all be aligned. And I'm looking for the tail to be, it should be the length of the body. Now I quite like a slightly over length tail on my flies. Personal thing. So pinch grip, pinch wrap, just to hold it down on the top. Now I've got a piece of pheasant that's just not playing ball there. So I'm just going to flick it out with the needle. Take a moment to put it back into place. And then take my thread back up towards the bend of the hook. And then I'm going to take my thread, keeping the pheasant on the top of the shank. Again, so I don't get any unsightly bulges anywhere. Now, I want to build an underbody on this because I want it to taper. I want it to taper. And so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back the pheasant tail on itself and tie it down with loose wraps. Not a massive amount of pressure, but fairly loose wraps, and take it back about 3/4 of the way back. And then I'm going to double it over again, and I'm going to step it up. Now it also uses up the pheasant tail so that it's not wasted. And you can do that once more, depending on the size of your bead. Once, twice, and each time I'm not taking it all the way back. And in fact, I'm going to take it once more. Once, twice. I'm going to finish at the bead, just behind the bead. I'm going to put a couple of tight wraps in, and we've got a stepped build for the body so far. Now before I tidy all that up, I'm going to put my rib in. And for this fly, I'm going to use some gold wire. This is small, so it's I think it's Uni. Yep, Uni products. Small gold wire, and take my wire snips, cut off a length. Now I'm going to tuck my wire into the bead. It secures the bead in place and just pushes the bead, but what it also does is it gets rid of the end of the wire that could cause an unsightly bump and just cause a little bit of grief as we're tying this fly. So I'm just going to tie that down behind the bead and then gradually work my way up back to the tail. Now at this point I'm just going to take a little bit of time just to go back and forth, up and down the body, because the nano silk isn't very thick. It's going to take a little bit just to overcome some of those little steps that we put in. I just want to build up just behind those little steps, back into the head, and then back all the way down, not all the way back to the base, but just in line with the point of the hook. I'm just going to tuck the rib away ever so slightly, and I'm going to go back to my pheasant tail, and I'm going to take 8 more fibres. 8 more fibres, and all the tips are aligned. And if it helps, give them a little lick to get them to stick together. And then I'm going to offer them up slightly longer than the bead at the front. And then I'm going to put in a pinch wrap to hold it down. And just tighten that up with a second. And I'm just going to pull those fibres back on themselves into the length of the body, so I'm not having to cut anything. Back to the base of the fly, and then take my thread all the way back up behind the bead. Now if you've got a bobbin holder, you could use that. I tend not to, because for the basic reason that when I was learning to fly tie, we never had such things. So I had to do everything sort of old school. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to take the pheasant here, just give it a little twist, not much, because it's going to twist as we bring it down, and in touching turns, not overlapping each other, but touching turns, I'm going to bring it down the body. If you find one just sort of comes a bit loose from the pack, just take a moment just to stop, reposition. There we go. Back in again. You don't want it to spin too much, because you'll end up not using more of the pheasant than you need to, not have enough to get it all the way up to the bead. And we're going to stop just behind the bead. We're not going to go right up and pack it right into the bead, but we want some space just behind the bead. It doesn't matter if the bead is still a little bit movable. 3 turns. Notice I'm counting my turns. Use turns sparingly, but enough. Put in another 2 to lock it in, and that's looking quite nice so far. Now I'm going to take my rib, and as we've done with other nymphs, I'm going to wind it the opposite way to the way that I wound the body on, and I'm going to put a turn in at the back, a second turn, and as I move my way up the body, I'm just going to make those turns a little bit more spaced out, as if they were the segments of the abdomen of an insect, of a nymph. And then I'm going to stop just behind the bead and tie that off. Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time, so that's 6, 7, going back and forth, one either side and then over. Because I'm using nano silk, it's very easy for it to slip out, and I want to worry this off. I don't really want to be cutting and leaving big chunks of metal sticking out. We're going to worry off like that, and we've got our pheasant tail nymph starting to look pretty special. I'm going to come in with some dubbing now, because I want to hide just in behind here and just pack that bead out, so I don't want the bead to be moving around. And it's up to you what colour you have. And for this one, I particularly like going for sort of like a fiery brown, particularly with the pickwick. So we're going to get a fiery brown, and this is Andrew's Scruffy Dubbing. I've used this many times, and I'm just going to lightly dub. Remember, I had this conversation at the Fly Dressers Guild on Tuesday, where we talked about dubbing and what's actually happening. And we're not getting it to stick. We're getting the fibres to felt together, to join together. So actually, they're not sticking to the thread as such, but they will if you put lots of wax on it. But I just want them to just sit there, so that when I put my first turn in, or my second, I'm catching them in, and then I can adjust and play with the thickness of the rope, and it's there. It's not going to move from there. And then I'm just going to build up behind 5, 6, 7. I'm just going to build up until I'm happy that it's locked into place. And I get this scruffy collar, which when you pick it out is going to represent some legs on the nymph. A little bit more. There we go. 1, 2. Here we go. Just have a quick little check that you're happy. Yep, happy with that. Draw everything back. I'm just going to put another turn in. I'm going to take some Sally Hansen, and I'm going to apply it directly to the thread. I don't want to be messing around with it, trying to get it in behind that bead. And then I'm going to tie it in behind there, so that'll dry and that'll secure it in place, and then we whip finish. 1, 2, 3. Whip finish done. It's a very simple fly, and it's very easy to tie down into very small sizes. And we've had some great fun with little wild brownies, with tiny little ones, tiny little versions of this, just dapping them over the reeds where the fish are sitting, and then they're coming up and hitting them. But at the same time, I caught my biggest ever trout at £12.12 at Meon Springs. Now, it's not my biggest, but that was the biggest at Meon Springs I've caught. And that was on this particular fly. Just give it a little brush. There you go. And there we have it. Beginner fly for us today. And ultimately, you know, you can then mess around with it. You could, you know, we quite often put some orange antron in as the tail, red wool, some crystal flash in at the back, and ultimately, you know, take off the bead. Sorry, it's the same process, but just catching the thorax cover, bit of dubbing for the the thorax over the top, put a bit of lead underneath it. World's your oyster. So hope you like that one, folks. Let's have a look at what who else has arrived. It's always good to know that people are still. You're absolutely right, Alan. Packets are 10 times harder to open when folk are watching you. In the classroom, when I was with the kids doing practical lessons, and like, you know, undoing a bottle, and you'd just be like, oh my god, I can't even undo this bottle. Like, yeah, it's just rubbish. Thanks, Luke. Yeah, it's nice to be back, actually. And lots of nice things. Yeah, absolutely, Luke. Absolutely, you know. Lots of variations of it, different colours, different sizes, different weights, different, you know, yeah, all sorts of stuff. You know, put some straggle string, some semperfly straggle string, you know, as a, or some straggle legs, you know, as the behind the bead, and you've immediately got ready-made legs. It doesn't have to be in pink, but it could be in lots of different colours. Pink, grayling bug with a nice tungsten head on it. You know, think outside the box. Absolutely think outside the box. Okay, so let me just have a little quick tidy up here to get these out of the way. So fly number 2 is, I've been playing with some materials, and I know it works because it's just an amalgamation of a number of different flies, and it doesn't particularly have a name, but it's a CDC hopper pattern that ultimately I think is going to be really effective for me this year. And I'm tying this on it's a strange hook to choose, but this is a Phasner F810, which is a lava standard wire hook. Now, I'm using this one tonight because for visuality, but you could use a clink hammer hook for this, and ultimately I just like the shape of the hook as well. I'm not going to mess around tonight with changing lots of different colours of thread. I'm going to go back to my copper nano silk, dry flies, keeping a minimum amount of bulk, reducing down the overall mass of the fly. I'm going to leave about 1 millimetre or so before the eye, and I'm just going to take my thread down to just past the hook point, and that's it. That's as far down as we're going to go for this particular fly as we go. So I'm going to put a body in. Now the body for this, I'm going to use some Semperfly dry fly polygon, and on these cards, which are on the website and in the shop, I think these are really good value as cards because you get all the different colours and you get about 1 metre of it. Now, you know, unless you're tying massive amounts of flies, you know, 1 metre is going to be fantastic, isn't it? Ultimately, and it's you can melt the ends, it'll twist together. There it is. It'll twist together, and it floats really well. So I'm going to use this tonight as an alternative detached body. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one end, I'm just going to cut it at a slight angle to reduce bulk, and I'm going to tie it onto the top with a pinch wrap. Just make sure I'm happy with its positioning. It's going to stick up. You can see it's already sticking up. And I suppose, in essence, it's built up as a palmino sort of midge. And then I'm going to decide on the length of the body. I want it the length of the hook plus 1, I think. So I'm going to take it back, I'm going to double it over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a twist in my fingers and bring it over the other side. Let me just get this so that now you can, there you go, that's what I want. Give it a twist. So you can see it's all twisted there. I'm just going to shorten it a bit because I don't want it that long. There we go. You can adjust the length as you see fit. There we go. Just give it another twist, and then I'm going to bring in my thread, tie that down, and we've got our detached tail. And when I was sort of putting this together, I was thinking bibios, I was thinking hawthorn flies, I was thinking, you know, March is coming up, March, April, great time, you know, I think we can have some fun, particularly at the start of April with these sorts of flies. So I'm just going to take that off like that, and there we have it so far. Now what you could do is and where have I got it? Yeah, there it is. If you've got a cauterizing tool or a lighter, just singe the, be careful though, singe the end, nice little blob at the end. It'll also help stop it from unwinding too much. And just give that a little push like that. And there we go. Now I'm going to go back to my scruffy dubbing, and I'm going to go for the cinnamon scruffy dubbing, and I'm just going to put a little ball of dubbing just in front of that detached body, just to hide the thread wraps. 2, 3, there we go, 4, 5, little ball, 6, there you go. I just used a tiny little ball. You can see why I'm using the nano silk, keeping all that bulk right down. And then I'm going to come in with our knotted hopper legs. Now, don't know about you guys, I sort of refuse to pay for them because I've got loads of pheasant, so I just use a crochet needle, very small crochet needle. I don't know if I've got it here at the moment. Very small crochet needle, and I sit there and I crochet these tiny little knots into these and do doubles and all sorts of stuff. These are done as individuals, and I'm going to take 3. There we go. Now the thing I like about doing my own as well is I can determine where the knots are, and I can make the legs the right length for different size hooks, which is often a bit of a problem because you get these knotted legs and you look at them and you're trying to put them onto a size 18 hopper, and all of a sudden, you know, you've got a leg that's big enough to feed a family of 4, and it's a bit frustrating. So there we go, there they are. So I've got my 3 together. I'm not too worried about them being all symmetrically together and stuff. I just literally want them to actually just sit on there. Now the other thing that piece of dubbing does is it kicks them out from the side, stops them laying flat, because I'm going to bring them down to the side. There we go. There we go. Trim those off. I'm going to take another 3. And do exactly the same. Trying to keep them the same length on either side. I can just hold those in place for the moment lightly. Put a little couple of locking wraps. Get those to kick out. Just be a bit more. There we go. There we go. and then tidy up. Trim off and come all the way back again. So we got detached body, hopper, legs. We're in so far. Going to go back to my dubbing. Tiny little bit of dubbing. Just to hide the wraps that I put those legs in. Not much, I'm just going to put a couple of little bits in. Just tidy that up. So far so good. Right, now this next bit I'm going to use some CDC. Got some olive CDC here. This is Petitjean CDC. Nice and long, because I need them to be long for this particular fly. And I'm going to choose three of these stems. What I like about the Petitjean, I know they're pricey, but what I like about the Petitjean CDC is the uniformity in the lengths. I don't get lots of tiny bits that are sort of useless to me. That, you know, when you're buying a 3 gram bag and you suddenly get a bag full of tiny little bits that, you know, you basically bought a bag of air because you're never going to use them. So I'm going to take them. I'm going to get my tips lined up. I'm going to get my tips lined up, and I'm going to pinch them. And with the curve of the feather facing up, I'm going to take them and place them on top of my hook, and I'm going to bind those down. Put a locking wrap in, 2, 3, for a quick check. Just think I need that a little bit longer, and you'll see why in a moment. So I always find that, you know, if you're checking lengths, put a locking wrap in, put a second holding wrap, and just take your time to position and see where everything is sitting. Because once you cut, it's game over. So you need everything in place. And I'm just going to tighten those down, and I'm just going to look where the eye is and bring my thread closer to the eye, trapping down, and then I'm just going to come under, and this is where I've said often, cutting at 45 degrees, and you get that angled cut, which allows you to get a nice build up at the front and back again. Okay, so far so good. So far so good. I'm going to come back in with my dubbing. So I want a bit of a thorax on this, a little bit more than I'd put in before. I want this quite chunky, and in it goes. And I'm going to put 1, 2, and work my way back down towards the eye of the hook, and then back up again, building up here and in and back. Okay, and I'm going to take these 3 feathers, making sure I don't pull any of those beautiful legs with me. Pull the feathers, and you'll find that you'll get these little tufts that are sticking out the back. You want to keep those. They're really essential. They look really good, and they help the flotation. And I'm just going to bring it forward to the eye and lock that down so that the tips are sitting over the eye. Now you'll notice that at this point I've left these really long, Normally you could just sort of, if I left them shorter, you could just leave that as a, you know, as a to help little tufts out the front. But actually, what I'm going to do with this is take my tiny little bit of dubbing again, just a tiny little smidge. It's a very technical fly tying term, a smidge. I'm just going to cover over those wraps and then very lightly take my thread back towards the base of those tufts, and then I'm going to draw these back over and tie down like that in just behind the thorax area, leaving some of these at the front like that. And you don't have to do this bit, tiny little bit of dubbing. Just to cover over. You could do it in olive. I just carried on the theme of the cinnamon. Just 2 turns. Just going to remove the waste. And then I'm going to come in and whip finish just in there. It's up to you if you put a little bit of varnish on that. I tend not to on my dry flies because I just don't want to add any more mass to them. And then I come in my dubbing brush, pull those out, have a little play with the legs, and there we have it. So CDC hopper with a twist, and the twist in the tail. Hope that's helpful to you guys. I like to leave these bits on the front as well. You could trim them off if you like. But you know, it's again, technique wise, you apply those techniques to other patterns, and straight away you can already start to build your repertoire of flies that are in your box. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's see who else has arrived. Oh, we've got a couple of extra people. Let's have a look. Oh, Graham. Nice to see you, Graham. See, Derek. The thing is that I'm tying for Ludlow on the Thursday. But actually, I'm going on holiday on the Friday. It's half term, so I'm disappearing off. I'll be somewhere in the wilds of Wales, eating ice cream and just getting back into my cultural heritage. Yeah, as a hawthorn, Neil, absolutely, in black, absolutely. Yeah, Alan, absolutely right. You start splitting the wings to the sides. I've even tied it with bubble CDC wings either side, and that works and looks something very similar. So I don't know if you make that out with these looped CDC wings. That works quite well. So yeah, so thank you for that. Graham would like to take this opportunity to order 10 smidges. Yes, I shall send you a smidge, Graham. Okay. Yeah, Neil, Petitjean CDC. It is expensive. Use it sparingly, and use it for your best flies. For lots of others, I buying, you know, the slightly cheaper. I haven't got one handy here. I put it away. Slightly cheaper sort of 3 gram boxes of them to ensure that you know, I'm going to have waste, and you do have waste with the Petitjean. But what you can do is you can take these here, and there's still a fly or two left in that. Definitely still a fly or two left in that, and there's definitely, if you keep enough of them, trim them all up and make your own dubbing out of it. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I use Cookshill as well. Steve's stuff at Cookshill is great. I just don't find there's a uniformity in length. That's the only thing, and I understand why. You know, because having packaged up loads of French partridge today and tried to grade feathers and stuff, it just takes forever. So fly number two. Hope you like that one. Again, what I'll do is I'll put pictures up and stuff. I am in the process, and this will happen at some point, of doing the individual videos for each one as well. I've just got a new camera to play with. It's an Ultra HD 4K camera, which hopefully will enable me to get really good shots of individual flies. Right, next one. In the build up to this, I said that this was influenced by tying with an 8-year-old. And a couple of years ago, I was down on holiday down in Devon with my family and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and my nephews. And I was sitting tying one afternoon because they were all sunning themselves out in the garden, and I sat there with a beer and literally just thought, I'll take this opportunity to tie up some dry flies, because I knew the week after I was coming back, here and I were going to hit the itching. And I was tying up sedges and sedgehog patterns. And my nephew sat with me, and he sort of said, "Can I choose what you put in it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, within a reason." He went, "Okay." And so as we were tying, he'd pull stuff out of my box and go, "Can you put this in it?" And I was like, "No, can't see why not." And that's where this fly appeared from. And it is basically a sedgehog type pattern, but again with a couple of little Robert's twists thrown into it, courtesy of my wonderful nephew Nevin, and who's now, he'll hate me for saying this now because he's now about 10 or 11, and he'll hate the notoriety. So again, I am not changing my thread copper. It's really versatile. I'm going to come in on my hook. Now for this, I'm using a Tiemco hook. I forgot to say that. I'm using a Tiemco hook here, a dry fly hook, which is slightly longer, because I've got a lot to pack in here, and it's the TMC 102Y. For those of you that are hook aficionados. I'll just take that back off again because I paused. As I put it on, the only drawback with nano silk for me is that it can be quite slippery. So you've got to keep tension, and you can't stop sort of halfway doing something. So I'm gonna put on my underbody, nice touch in turns, down to in line with or just past the tip. Cut that off. There we go. And I'm going to put a tail in, and for this tail I'm going to use some grey Antron. Could use grey Aero Wing or anything like that, whatever you've got. It's not going to be a massive tail, so but it just plays quite an important part in the profile of the fly. What I'm going to do is going to take my Antron. Now I'm not worried about measuring it at this point because I'm going to cut it. So I just need to get it in place. So I'm just going to place it on top of my hook. Just going to, another technical fly tying term, I'm going to twizzle. There you go, smidge and twizzle. Right, so I'm going to twizzle, pinch wrap, lock it down, second, adjust. Make sure I'm happy with where it's sitting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread back. Oh, not that. I'm not going to do that. That's not what you're going to do, Mark. Let's start that one again. I'm going to hold it down, pinch, trap it down, one. Let's put some more lock-in turns in. There we go. More lock-in turns. And then I'm just going to position the antron on the top of the shank, keeping everything on the top, reducing bulk as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to take it up to about 4 millimeters away from the eye of the hook. And as always, I put my scissors down. Oh, there they are. Put my scissors down. Couldn't see them. And then I'm just going to come in, just going to trim that off at 45 degrees. Just tidy up this end. And then take my thread all the way back down. There we go. And I'm going to take this opportunity now. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut. I just want a little stubby tail on it. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to run my scissors along the bend of the hook and bring them up. And where they meet, just clip. Okay. So I'm using the dimensions of the hook to aid me there. Okay. And ultimately, first stage done. Okay. Now there's a lot of sort of dubbing today, but it's small micro dubbing. I'm going to come back into the fiery brown because this is the colour that Nevin said he liked. So the fiery brown. Can you put the fiery brown in, Uncle Mark? So I said, yeah, I can put this fiery brown in because I'd said to him, I think we need a little bit of fur or something in this, and he went, oh, okay. So I'm just going to dub on a little bit. I'm going to move it up. There we go. And just going to build up a little ball at the base of the tail. There we go. Drop it in there. Now, just realised there's something I need, which is up here. There we go. Now, he then pulled out some deer. To which point I thought, oh no, he's not going to ask me to make that funny spinny heady thing again, is he? But he said no. He said, can you put this in it? And I said, yeah, I could show you what I could do with it. I've got an idea. So what I did, this is brown deer hair. This is from Nature's Spirit. Still think they do some of the best deer out there. And I'm going to take a pinch. So when I'm looking at it, if I lay them out and flatten them out, I reckon that's 1/2 centimetre. I can always take it away. It's far more difficult to add. And I'm just going to clip that close in. And holding it like this with these beautiful tips, I'm just going to take all of the fluffy underhair out. Now, deer that have been shot in the winter all have a lot more of that fluffy underfur than in the spring. So you can tell when they've been, roughly when they've been shot. And what we're going to do is we're going to offer it up as a wing at this point. Offer it up. Now notice that I haven't at this point done any hair stacking. Okay, I'm just judging where it's going to be, and I want the back one to be slightly longer. Okay, so now I'm going to take my hair stacker. I'm just going to drop those fibres in, put my thumb on the top, give it a bang. And we get our nice fibres all nice and neatly arranged. You're going to get some errant ones in there, and some of them it's very weird, seem to turn upside down in the stacker. I can still see a bit of underhair in there that's come out from the stacking process, so I'm just going to adjust that. And if you find you still got some, take a little comb, just run the comb through it. Just becomes harder to work with. Now, the great thing about deer hair is if you look at it under a microscope, you know, and I read lots of stuff where people say, yeah, deer hair's hollow, so it floats. Well, it's not hollow. It's compartmentalized, so it's got little walls inside, and there is air trapped in those, because as the hair grows, that's how it's growing, and that's what makes it so good for dry flies. But at the same time, because it's hollow, it's a bit like compacting straws. So when you pull down using your tying thread, it will flare out. Don't worry about it. Best way I found: pinch, bring it round, back up, keep pinching absolutely everything, and pull down so everything stays on the top of the hook. You don't want anything spinning. I'm put a second turn in and a third locking turn. Now I can start to put a bit of tension on those, and you'll see that excuse me, you see that these end bits are now all splayed out, which is fine. When we look at the back, it hasn't splayed as much at all, because we've kept that under control all the way through. Okay, I'm going to take my scissors, come in, and a 45-degree cut. Take those loose ends off. Any really loose ends, this little bit is a bit errant, so let's get rid of him. There we go. And then just again, great for use of nano silk here to reduce bulk. I'm just going to tie that down, and then back to, we decided we'd go back to the dubbing, and I said, oh, I could build this up into a hedgehog. And he said, oh cool, you're gonna tie a hedgehog? I said, no, it's going to be called a sedgehog. And he got very interested in that. And if I can find the picture, immediately after the holiday I went fishing with Kieran, and it caught fish, which was great, which is absolutely fantastic. So I sent him the pictures. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, just bring them out. So gradually we're moving our way down. I'm just going to put another one in, moving our way down the hook shank. There we go. And we're going to go through the same process again with our deer hair. I won't describe it, I'll just do it. So you can see, I'm going to come straight in with the comb this time and just comb everything out. Stack it. Check it. Pinch it. See these bits at the end? Get rid of those. Anything that's loose disappears. Keep those tips tight. And when I position this, same length, but you can see now I'm offsetting it because I've put that little bit of dubbing in. So I'm building up sort of a mane, and I'm going to do exactly the same. Pinch it, pinch, wrap, round, up, pull, bit of tension, lock in, wrap. Now start to put my tension on to flare out. And I've got my second little wing in. Now, I like to put in little wings as I'm going along. What you could do is instead of doing them as small, bigger clumps, take less time. But because I like fly tying and playing with all this stuff, right, there we go. Let's put that in, build that up, get rid of that. Form that in. Back to the deer hair. When I'm cutting my deer hair, I'm taking it along this in, and I do. I'm a bit OCD, I suppose, if I can say that. I like it all to be very in line with each other as we're going along. It just helps me. I can't just come in and just like nip off just a massive clump somewhere. So same process. Just going to make this one slightly thicker at the front. Get rid of all that under fur. Any weird bits that are sticking out. Just get rid of a little bit, so there's a bit much there. Into the stacker. Now I'm putting lots of techniques into this. You don't have to make it totally in this way. So offer it up, you can see how it's all starting to come together. So that's 3. There we go, we got that up. In we go. And again, then using the nano silk just reduces down the bulk in the underbody that I don't want. Let's just tidy that bit up. Let's get rid of that bit of dubbing there that I've left for later. There we go. So I left a bit of dubbing on the thread. Just pushed it down so that I didn't have to keep dubbing. 1, 2, 3. And there we go. Now I'm going to put one more little brown piece of deer in. We've got a bit of space. And you're going to get the odd little bit that's going to stick out. And, you know, this is fly tying, isn't it? And I'm tying to catch fish here. You know, what do they see? They see a profile. They might think they're legs or, you know, some sort of crippled fly on the surface. Going to drop in stack again. Get rid of dodgy bits. Offer it up. Same again. Trim off. And then come up to the eye and really tidy up that front section. Now it was at this point that Nevin said, right, I'm bored of the brown. And he said he pulled out this. But he went, right, can you put that on it? So, well, okay. Let's try and figure it out. And then I realised that actually, effectively what we were doing was putting in a sort of a sighter wing on it. So I clipped off a little bit. I think half the amount that I would for the other wings. And same process. Cleared off all of the under fur. Gave it a little bit of a stack. A little bit less than that. I can go. I don't want a massive amount on there. Oh, there we go. That's better. So about 2 to 3 millimeters, I suppose, when you got it splayed out. And I just placed it on the front, just slightly longer. Same process. And what we found on the water was I actually used it to distinguish my fly from other bits of stuff that was floating down the river. I just tidy that up. There we go. So you can see that we've got this nice little pattern starting to emerge. Excuse the pun. Final bit that we did with this is we took some CDC. Again, this is Petitjean CDC. This is their old gold CDC. And what we did was, he said, "Can we use this?" I said, "Well, yeah. Okay, let's think this one through." So I thought, this is what we can do. So, I've got a feather prepper here, which are great little devices. This is a foam one from Hairline, and it's got lots of little grooves in it for different size feathers, which I found was good. And I'm going to use this to push my feather into at the right length. Like that. You can see there. Now, you can then, if you've got a bulldog clip or something like that, I've got a Petitjean tool here. Just literally come in and clip it onto the CDC there, and then just draw it out. And we're left with it like that. Just reaching over to get a longer pair of scissors. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip off the ends. Could have done that earlier. And then I'm just going to come in along the stalk of the feather, and I'm just going to trim it along the stalk. I'm not going to get it all, so that I've got these fibres here. Now, with the, what have I done with that? There it is. With the nano silk, I know it's thin, but it actually lies really flat, and it's quite easy to split in half like that. And because it's high tensile strength, those splits aren't really, they're not, you know, I know we've halved the width, it's still very strong. I'm going to take my my CDC tool, and I'm going to place the CDC into the split thread, position it, and just remove the tool. Okay, and then I'm just going to give the whole thing, take that up a bit, very conscious that that just moved, but never mind. Right, so I'm just going to give it a spin and spin the CDC. There we go. And then I'm just going to take that back to the base. Now what I'm going to do is at the base there, I'm just going to draw everything back and put some turns moving forward, just drawing all of those fibres back until I get to a position where I've used up. I want to use up all that CDC if I can. No point wasting it. And then when I get to the end, to the eye, I'm going to come in and build my head. Taking my time. There we go. And then come in a couple of turns with the whip finish tool. Come in with the scalpel, trim that, and now I'm just going to come in. I am just going to trim off any errant bits of CDC that are just pushing forward. I don't want those there. Anything going back is absolutely perfect and absolutely fine. And splay it out. Any really long bits you can just pluck out. like that. And then, I know I don't normally put anything on the heads on the dry flies, mainly because I end up using them and losing them very quickly. If I'm tying quickly, I just want to be able to get it out off the vise. So I'm just going to dip a needle in, hold all that CDC back, and just let that cilia do its thing on the head, and it'll soak in. It'll just secure it in place. You don't want it to soak into the CDC, although you'll get a little bit, but you don't want it if you can help it. What to do with the lid? There's the lid. And there you have it. It's my take on, based off my nephew, who we were sitting there just building flies and stuff, and I call it the Nevenator after him. You know, it's very similar to lots of other flies, isn't it? Let's face it. It's got all of the attributes in there, but with some fluff dust on it, keeping it afloat. You know, it'll float for forever ultimately. So I hope you like that one. There's a lot to that one, and you don't have to put all of those wings in. You could just put the tail, build the body, maybe put a little tiny rib in there, and then just put a front deer hair wing in, and then build in the CDC. But it just caught fish, and it's sort of got a nostalgic sort of feel for me, that my nephew helped me build it. Okay, let's see. Oh, we got some other people that have arrived. What have we got? See you, Stevie. I know you've gone probably by now, but it's nice to have you here. Let's have a look. Dan, love the process of tying sedgehogs, but not had much success fishing them. What's your preference? Techers for them? Not quite sure what that means. They are really good. I think Neil's hit it there. They're really good, not just in a big wave, but in quite turbulent water. You know, coming out of if where the water shallows and suddenly you've got some rocks and suddenly you get a bit of white water in and they bumble along. Chub love them. Oh man, do they hit them? So it's worth it. You know, if you got chub in front of you, the greedy buggers, they will just smash into them. And yeah, Dylan, completely static. On the still waters, at Meon Springs on the catch and release in the summer, when we could fish it before we had all that hot weather, just leaving them on the surface and then giving them a little pull every now and then just to get a bit of a weight going and a bit of disturbance, and the fish should come up and take them. Also quite a good one if you're going to fish clink and dink. Ultimately, it's pretty buoyant. You could suspend your nymph off the hook point, or tie in a little bit of mono at the back, and suspend it from that, or even put in a tippet ring if you like. But yeah, another lovely pattern that I like to fish with, that has a very special place in my box. Neil, Farmore. I'm not far from Farmore actually, and I still haven't fished it. I need to get there. So June, you reckon? Right, okay, gonna get out there. Oh, techniques. You went a bit Bristolian, you did, buddy. You went Bristolian. Or South African, I'm not quite sure what it was. So I think we've covered the techniques that I like to use them to fish. Ultimately, and that's where we stand with them. So fly number 3, all in, and we're going well. Just have a little drink. Don't forget, any comments, any questions. You're asking great questions. We've got a bit more chat this week. Everyone was fixated last week And also I'll put a shout out for the local fly dressers guilds anywhere near you guys. If you've got a guild near you and you're not already, maybe go into some of their sessions or whatever. They're well worth it. Just to for good old chat. But I walked into the Way Valley fly dressers on Tuesday night, and literally 3 or 4 people bought in loads of boxes of fly tying materials just for everybody to help themselves. So it was like, it was great. It was, oh, I need some of those. Well, you have some of those and I'll have some of that. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was a great camaraderie in there, and lots of really good learning going on, which was fantastic. Right, final fly for tonight is this meaty monster. Okay, this meaty monster. Lots of lots and lots of techniques in this. Malcolm, am I going to the BFFI? I was. I'm not anymore. Number of reasons. Mainly a family holiday, because we had COVID over Christmas and our Christmas was absolutely trashed, and we're going to use the half term to actually catch up with my Welsh family and actually have a little bit of a break. We're heading down to Tenby actually, so it won't be too far from you, Dill. If you're still on, it won't be too far from you, so I'll drop you a message, because I might be able to get out. I'm not sure, depends. So for this fly, I'm using a Predator streamer hook from Partridge, big and chunky, because these flies were heading down to Patagonia and to Iceland, and ultimately, we've all seen the videos of the size of some of those fish. You salivate over them, but ultimately I wanted them to be there for, these are steelhead hooks ultimately, but you can scale it right down, and you can scale it up, so pike patterns and streamer bait fish for bass as well, and just change things out. So we're going to start on there. There we go. And again, I'm not changing my thread. I do like it. Not just the colour. I just like the strength of it, and I'm going to need that in a moment. So I'm going to start off about 2 mils out from that eye. It's a straight eye on this one as well. And I'm just going to touch in turns, same as before, all the way down to just in line with the barb of the hook, so about halfway between the bend and the point. And then I'm going to take my tying thread just back up and just nip off like that. Now we're going to put multi-layered tail into this, and I'll just make sure I've got the right box. Yes, that is the right box. A multi-layered tail into this. And what I'm going to use for this is I'm going to use some crystal flash. This lovely crystal flash, which I am a big fan of. I put it in lots and lots of patterns. Even when I don't need it, I just think, right, I'm going to put some crystal flash in that. Can't hurt. Fish don't care. It's good to stick it in a wing. You can put it as a tail. You can do all sorts of wonderful stuff. So I'm going to take a hank of it. So I think there's about 12, 13 strands there, maybe even more. And literally, I want to bind these down onto the top. And again, I'm not bothered about how long it is at the moment, because I'm going to cut them back. So I'm going to use my pinch grip technique. All the techniques are the same. Down it goes. Hold it in place. Lock, turn. Adjust on top. Have a little check. Now this bit gets in the way, so you've got to be careful with that. And then I'm going to tighten up and secure it in place. As I said, this bit gets in the way, so I'm actually now going to come in and I'm going to cut it, but I'm not going to cut it here. I'm not going to cut it all the way out here. I'm going to bring it down, and about halfway I'm going to cut it at that good old 45-degree angle. And keep the waist bits, because you can tie multiple of these flies using that hank as you go. And then I'm going to take my thread. I'm not too worried about whether or not I get everything matched and under this, because it's going to have quite a bulky body. And under it goes, and then just take some time. And if you've got any bits that are just sticking out like that, and we get rid of you. We get rid of you. There we go. And I'm going to bring it all the way back down to my original starting point. And there we have it. So in terms of the length of the tail, so the length of the tail, you can have it as long as you like, I suppose. But crystal flash, when you got this much, when it gets over there, it starts to droop. So I wanted it, again, another technical term, I want it before its drooping point, which I think is something which we've all heard at some point. I'm just going to bring my scissors along, and I want it about the length of the body. I'm sort of judging it by eye, but I'm just going to tilt my scissors and snip. And it splays out. Oh, good. There we go. A nice little tail. And then I'm going to come in with some dark olive marabou. Now these are marabou bloods. Still really disappointed on most companies' quality of marabou. You know, and their dyeing process just spoils a lot of the feathers. But this stuff isn't too bad. This was a Vineyard's Strung Bloods pack. And what I'm after is using the tips of these feathers here. So I'm just going to pull the tip out. Now when you see in other tying videos where they've got on lures and stuff, or even cormorants, where they've got this beautiful wing that's all the same length, they're using the tips of the bloods for these. So a little tip from me. They're well worth investing in. So a couple of the packets with different colours for different things. And for this, I'm going to put on a tail of marabou on top of my crystal flash. Gives it a little bit of extra movement in the water. Softens it up a bit. And we all know that sometimes when fish bite on something or come in from the back and they hit something, sometimes, you know, as soon as they hit something hard, they bulk at it. And if you can soften it up a little bit, it's fantastic. And the crystal flash is really there as an attractor. 45 degrees, trim it off. Now I'm going to do my tidying. There we go, bring it all the way back to the base. Okay. Ed, don't laugh at my drooping point. I'm using very technical terms here tonight, right? So this is going to go down in the lexicons of fly tying as complete legendary stuff. For the Zonker tail and the Matuka over wing, I'm going to use, there you go, good old Cooksil, superior quality. So this is Zonker strips, rabbit Zonker strips. Steve, great guy, did me a great favour, because when I was tying these for a customer, I wanted them. I couldn't get decent barred or decent rabbit Zonker strip anywhere. And guess who had it? Yeah, Steve. So there it is. Here's my Zonker strip. Don't be frightened with it. It's literally a long strip of fur. And what I want, I'm going to look at the natural lay of it. And it's pointing backwards, which is fantastic. And I'm just going to look at that leathery bit, the skin, the leather there. I'm going to just place that, and you can decide how long you want it. Okay, I'm just going to make it slightly longer than the tail, about ½ centimetre longer than the tail. I'm just going to put it on there just to look at it, just to judge it. You'll get fibres everywhere. There's lots of under fur on this. But what I'm now going to do is just going to peel all this back here. What you can do, wet your fingers, like that. It makes it far more manageable to work with. And I'm just going to place it. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to come in, pinch wrap, down and up. Now the down and the up secures it without it spinning around on the shank. I'm just going to check I've got it where I want it. Lift the tail up because I don't want to miss any part of the underbody on this. So there we go. A couple of bits in. And take it forward, and I'm just going to put a couple of wraps forward. Now, what I found is that I've got my spring here on that I've added to this vise, because this vise didn't have one originally, which is really good because I'm now going to trap that zonker tail or that zonker strip in the spring and keep it out of the way. Another, and that just gets it out of the way. It's all good. Now, I'm going to put a rib on this. You can put whatever you like on it. But I'm going to use, if I can find it, what have I done with that? There it is. I got it. So I'm going to use this this red UTC Ultra wire, and I'm primarily using it because I've got loads of it, because I was given a load of second-hand stuff, and there were about 4 to 5 reels of it, and I'm never going to use that much, I don't think, but I thought, well, not use it as much as I can. So I'm going to take my tie-in thread foot back up the body, and I'll take my thread and place the wire underneath and just bring it across the top, and then secure it in place with a couple of wraps. And I want to run this down the side of my fly. By doing it this way, I'm making sure that I haven't got a bit on the top, a bit on the side, a bit underneath, and it isn't all unsightly, and I'm not going to get any chunky bits that are all over the place. I'm just going to put a second layer across that just to secure it in. As I said, the nano silk can be a bit slippy at times, and sometimes things like wire can just pull out. Okay, right, now we're going to go for a dubbed body on this. You don't have to. You can put anything on this. I'm going to go for dubbed body, and for this I'm going to use Hen's UV ice dubbing, and it's this particular green here that I like. So I'm going to go for this green, and I'm going to pull off a bit. Now what I always do with synthetics is I make sure that I've taken out, they're all compacted as they're pushed in, and even in the packet. So I want to fluff it all out there. It makes it easier to dub. And I'm just gonna offer it up to my tie-in thread, just the tip of it. And as soon as I get that first bit on, just give it a little twist. It'll stick on. The whole thing will stick on. You can probably see it there. But I'm going to position it so I get a fine noodle running down, but I can play around with it. And because it's Antron, and because it's synthetic, it's already on a synthetic thread that's very slippery anyway. You just got to take your time, and you can always add stuff to it. It's already not playing ball at the top, right? I'm just going to get that in play, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1-2 turns to catch it in. Now it's there. I'm just going to adjust. There we go, and I'm going to take my dubbing about 2/3 of the way up the body, and I'm going to work my way back down again and add some more. Now you could do it in a dubbing loop, you could do it split thread. I think life's a bit too short for that on this particular fly. You could use a mylar body on it, mylar tubing. It's a great thing where you put the mylar tubing on it and then you fill it put some beads inside the mylar tubing as well, and it rattles, which is quite cool. I might do that one day. There we go, and we're in play. Now I've left that top section because it's a two-tone body on this for this one. Doesn't have to be, but I'm going to add in this this pinky red here as a throat. And the top half of the body again, same process. Pull it out, get it so it's easier to work with. Offer it up, twist, then start manipulating it up the thread. There we go. And it really is just felting. 2 turns, lock in place. 1, 2, I'm going to take it up, not all the way up to the eye. I'm going to leave a couple of millimeters because I've got to tie down that that rabbit, and that rabbit's going to be bulky. I'll bring it all the way back down again and just finish at that point. There we go. So here's my rabbit, okay, and I'm going to bring it across, and I'm going to hold it down across the top, and I'm just going to part the fur until I get it to a position where it's in line with where my thread is. I'm going to put a locking turn just there. Now this is where the tensile strength of this nano thread, nano silk, is great, because you can put quite a bit of tension on it to lock it in and not worry about your thread snapping. 1, 2, 3, that's locked into place, and I'm going to come in now and just nip the rest of it off. Because I left the space, I'm now not crowding the eye, and when I finish this fly off, what will happen is that this front section, I'll show you, will get drawn back. I'm just going to tidy up this front. Don't worry too much about it looking a bit unsightly at this point. You could leave it like that, and we've got a sort of a zonker. The matuka comes in because of the way in which we're going to put the rib through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the rib through, and I've got some turns just there at the back that I'm going to cover with a wrap of wire. I'm just going to hold that there. Now, the problem we got here is that it's all dry, and it's a bit of a problem to work with. So wet your finger and your thumb. There we go, like that. Wet hair, as we know, well, no, I haven't got any hair, but wet hair is easier to cut and to manipulate, but also it allows you to work out where each of your wraps is going to be of wire. So I'm just going to pull that out like that, and then bring my wrap through, hold it down, take the next bit. Because this wire is quite rigid, it's staying in place. So take the next one in. Got about 4 turns. Got a third there. I'm going to hold the wire this time. Just going to use a needle to split the fur. Back in again, round we go, and then the final turn finishes at the head. And I'm going to lock that in plate, Now I haven't put any weight in this at all, any mass. You could put an underbody of lead in, flat lead, which would be great as well. I'm just leaving this as a unweighted at this point. Just worry off the wire, and I'm just going to tidy up the front. Just make sure everything is secure. Push it all back down. You can see that it's starting to take shape. If you've got, what we're done with it, your little comb, you can start to comb everything out, and it'll all dry as we're going along. Now I'm going to come in now and just whip finish here. Now you can leave it like that, absolutely fine, absolutely fine. But the pattern, the original pattern that I tied, called for a bit of finesse at the front. So I then swapped my thread out for this fire orange at the front, and I'm going to use it to form an orange head as a trigger point. Take it all the way back and just build it up back to front and then back again, covering over that beautiful copper nano silk that's done its job really well. And finish at the back like so. Trim off. One, two, three. Now, as I said, you could leave it like that, bit of resin on the front, or and you've got a nice Matuka Zonker baitfish style pattern. It's not finished yet though, for me, because I really want it to look baitfishy, so I'm going to put some eyes on it. So I've got these tiny little eyes. I don't know where I got these from, but I've got millions of them. And I've got another couple of these. I think, again, I was given some second-hand stuff, and it is just all in the bottom, and it was like, oh, okay. But they're great because they're sort of 3D, but at the same time, very small, which often you can't get. So I like to put them on my hand like that. And, you know, when I'm feeling really lonely, I pretend it's a friend, you know. But I just turn the fly in the vise. And then what I do is I take some Gulf Thinman resin. Again, you could use super glue. Not going to use super glue because I will literally stick myself to the whole thing, and I won't be moving from here until somebody rescues me. And as always, I put my needle down. I don't know what I've done with it, so I'm going to have to find another needle in a second, because it's a pretty essential piece of kit. What have I done with that? There you go, I'll use that one. Okay, so I'm just going to take a blob of resin, and I'm going to place it just behind the coloured head and half on, half off. So it's not really close up to the eye. So I want the eye to be set back. On it goes. And then I'm going to take my eye. I'm going to use the tip of my needle, which has got a bit of resin on, and I'm going to get it to just stick to that, and then I'm just going to take it in, offer it up, and push it down so it's in place. And then I'm going to use my needle once I'm happy to position it. So at this point, if I was using super glue, I would have super glued myself to the hook, but also it doesn't give me enough time to position. So a little bit of resin. There you go, got that in place. Take my torch, use the tip of my needle just to hold it down and keep it in place, and give it a blast. There you go, turn it off, and repeat on the other side. So there's the other side. Blob of Thinman resin, half on and half off there. take the eye, take the tip of the needle, position in place. Now it's at this point that you just take that time just to make sure you've got them symmetrically in place. And I'm just going to use my tip of my needle just to do that. Push it down. There we go. And give it a blast. There we go. And that's nice and secure. And then the final touch. And again, I'm going to use Golf Classic. Now I'm going to build up a bit of a head on this, and it makes that orange, fire orange head really ping as well. So I'm going to start off by putting in, if I can get any to come out. There we go. I'm going to come in and just place it in between the eyes on the top, and then let gravity just pull it into place, and then start to manipulate it with the tip of the needle. So we're getting more of a fish shaped head. There we go. Give it a zap. I keep looking around because one of my cats has just come in, and they notoriously hide and make their way and try and nab my capes off the table. So if I suddenly dart to one side, it's because one of those little fur terrorists has decided that Daddy's having too much fun and they want to have some fun. I think I might need to get some new resin. There we go. Take another blob, turn the fly upside down, and repeat the process on the underside. Just take your time. The thing about the resin is that you can always take bits off. You can build it up, add a little bit, little and often, just build up. Give it a blast. Ooh, sorry about that. And then I just need a little bit more on that bottom bit, so I'm just gonna there we go. And just gonna add that on just underneath, but I'm going to draw it from the head backwards, so I get a taper, and make sure it's gone around the side. Just put a little bit on the eyes as well, and then give it one final zap. There we go. And I always just like to, I know it's going to be hard and stuff, but I'm just going to come in with Sally Hansen and just put a layer of that over the eyes as well, just to put a hardening cover over, and it actually makes those eyes ping a little bit. There we go. And that front head is often enough weight, enough mass to get the fly down anyway. And then the final bit, and normally I'd let everything dry for this, the final bit is I'm just going to come in and just quite firmly just give it a bit of a scrub underneath and down the side. Just get it scruffed up a bit. Now you could use a Fritz body. You know, there's all sorts of things that you could do with it. Just go full natural material. And there we have it. Now that the wing, the overwing there, that'll all dry. You know, it's still a little bit wet there. And if you find that, you come back in with your little comb and give it a stroke. Stroke it all back. You can see what it looked like in the water as it goes back like that. And the tail shimmying back and forth. And there you have it. That's I offer you my 4th fly of the evening. And we've gone through, if I just remind you, we've gone from our classic OG pheasant tail nugget Nymph. We then went to the detached CDC hopper. Nice little Sedgehog. The Nevenator. And then finally the Baitfish Zonker baitfish, which I'm going to use tomorrow. I've tied 2, Kieran, so we can have 1 each, and we'll see if we can entice something on our little travels tomorrow. Okay, so let's have a look. Where are we? God, you've all been really busy. I've gone back to Sedgehog's gone too far. Sedges, far more techniques are Bristolian. Lots to talk about the BFFI, so gutted. Somebody's going to be getting a list of things that I'd like. Lots of chat between Malcolm and Dylan, which is great. Thanks, Graham. Brilliant tie-in. It's always nice to get some positive feedback, and you guys are great. Yes, thank you, Dylan. Might need to tie more than 2, as you pair do like the trees. Thank you very much. Just because we didn't snap ours off like you did. Aha. Okay. Lots and lots and lots there for you guys. God, it's not really 1 3/4 hours. My God, that went really quickly. I hope you enjoyed that, and as always, keep your comments coming in. Subscribe to me on YouTube, please. It's always good to have lots of people on there. It just enthuses me to make more videos. Spread the word. And don't forget the sort of mini unofficial competition type thing. You know, if you feel challenged to have a go at some of these, or put your own spin on them, have a go. Stick them up in the in the comments that I'll put up. I'll put up a little post. All I will say is, because I know there's a couple of pro tires that have been watching, you can't enter, but please, you can enter, but you're not going to win anything. It'd be really nice to see, if I can inspire absolutely anybody. Graham, yours is in the post for your fantastic damsels that you put up the other day. I know I didn't launch it last week, but I just thought that was so good that it deserved recognition. Plus, also, I've got that box of goodies to get out, courtesy, and I'll say it now, courtesy of Semperfly, who gave me a lot of goodies to give away tonight and in future weeks. That's it from me for tonight, folks. I'm gonna go and get myself ready and get all my kit ready for tomorrow, ensure that I don't forget anything. But it's been fantastic as always, and I hope you really enjoyed it, and have a good weekend. I won't be back next week because I'm going away, but the following week, I think, yeah, the following week I'll be back, but I'll put up the usual notice up in the group, and this video will be downloaded and up on the YouTube channel Sunday, not tomorrow because I'm going fishing. But I'm going to love you and leave you. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves.